Hey y'all, today we're solving a decade-old mystery. This is a story of an estate sale find, and it involves radioactive clay, a kitschy mid-century modern design, and the Manhattan Project, aka the atomic bomb. In this video, I'm going to share with you tips on how to hunt down those rare pieces for your collection and how you can take a deep dive into the history of the makers of these treasured collectibles. Hi, I'm Victoria. I've been collecting mid-century treasures since I was 10 years old. That was 30 years ago. Our channel here is called Super Geeked, where we celebrate everything that we get super geeked about. So naturally, I'm here talking about one of my passions, mid-century collectibles. And here is where our story begins. Over 10 years ago, at an estate sale, I found this stunning platter. It's asymmetrical, it's oversized with a single lip that mimics some other special pieces in my collection, like my 1940s Russell Wright surfboard table that has a single lip on one side. The vibrant brushstroke-like pattern in pinks and turquoise and harvest gold stole my heart, and I snagged it right away. At the time, I didn't know what I was in for or how challenging finding matches to this stunning pattern would be. In saying that, I have spent over a decade searching for just one single additional piece to match this pattern. So let's start with the obvious. I could tell it was special. I love American pottery, and this platter fit right into my collection, but I wanted to know more. First step, as I'm sure you could guess, is to flip your china over and look for maker's marks. The markings on the back of my platter read Canonsburg Pottery, Arizona, and Frolic. I assume, based on my experience as a collector, that Canonsburg Pottery was the maker, Arizona was the line, and Frolic was the pattern. So 10 years ago, I didn't get very far in my research. I began with my own knowledge of Canonsburg Pottery, which was limited to a few patterns that are readily found in antique stores, like wild clover that featured branches and what looked like to me pine cones. I live in the deep south. I've bought and sold several pieces of this pattern over the years. Then there's the very popular Temporama, which is very atomic and kitschy. Mid-century modern collectors love this pattern. And another pattern often seen in the wild is the Temptation pattern, which features a yellow rose. There were more limited editions in this pattern with a pink rose and a super rare coral rose. But other than these and a few other common patterns, I knew little about Canonsburg Pottery. The next logical and easiest route for research is the web. We have so much at our fingertips, and although there are so many more resources today than there was 10 years ago, when I started my search, I was only able to find vague facts about Canonsburg Pottery, but nothing on the Arizona line, or even more so, the pattern Frolic. During this time, I was part of a very extensive mid-century modern collector community on a website called Flickr, where we would post photos of our collections, our recent acquisitions, and so on. So I did upload photos of the platter at the time and asked my fellow collectors, and although they admired the piece, they didn't have further information that would help with the hunt. That is where my search ended. For the last 10 years, I have sporadically checked eBay and Etsy, done the occasional Google search, but have turned up nothing. I have even tried to manifest that one day I would walk into an estate sale or thrift store, and there she would be. But alas, nothing has been fruitful until 2 weeks ago. A great tip I have for researching beyond the web is to reach out to local historical preservation departments. Most cities and towns across the U.S. have one where they are in the business of preserving local history. In the case of Canonsburg, I did reach out, but unfortunately it ended up being a dead end. I was just redirected to a website that I had already found in my own research. However, that is not always the case. And a lot of times, this can be your key to finding out historical data on a manufacturer or a community. Another place that I look, and you may have heard me mention in previous videos, are resource guides or books. Many are put out as an official guide, but there are also collector's editions that are written by avid collectors. However, again, in the case of Canonsburg, this was a dead end, with only one small book on the community. Fast forward to present day. I started a YouTube channel with my best friends and launched a series on the mid-century era. And brainstorming for what the series would be, I sought inspiration by walking around my own home and revisiting my own collections. The Canonsburg platter began to call to me, and the obsession to find out once and for all about this mysterious pattern was full steam ahead. But before I show you what I found, let's talk about the maker, because two things get me excited about collecting: the hunt and the history. So after weeks of research, here's what I know. Canonsburg Pottery was located in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, which is 20 miles southwest of Pittsburgh, and was in operation from 1900 to the 1970s. Canonsburg is actually considered the most radioactive town in America. The Department of Energy has a disposal site at the former uranium ore processing mill. According to the Department of Energy, the former mill processed uranium and other ores at the site between 1911 and 1957, the same time that Canonsburg Pottery was in operation. The mill provided uranium for the U.S. government national defense programs, including the Manhattan Project, aka the atomic bomb. More on that later. I'll link the U.S. Department of Energy's fact sheet on the Canonsburg site if you would like to do some further reading. I personally find it quite fascinating. The founders of Canonsburg Pottery set forth a plan to attract a pottery to the town of Canonsburg in 1899. The Midwest was a hotspot for potteries at that time, with many manufacturers located in neighboring Ohio. Their plan was not to promote a pottery based on rich clay deposits or mineral water, but on coal, gas, and the railroad, which to this day remain major industries in this area. A company was organized in October of 1899 with a board comprised of W.S. George, remember that name because he'll come into play later, Samuel Munell, John L. Calkins, C.C. Johnson, and D.R. McDonald. It began as Canonsburg China Company, chartered February 21st, 1900. The first plant began operation with 8 kilns and manufactured china, toiletware, chamber pots, and specialties. By 1910, the capacity had been increased to 13 kilns. The main ingredients of pottery are clay and water. While the water was local, the clay came from Florida, North Carolina, Denver, New Jersey, and Kentucky, as well as 2 kinds of clay imported from other countries. The name of the business would change from Canonsburg China Company to Canonsburg Pottery Company in March 1909. In 1937, in the notes, a local newspaper, it was reported that the Canonsburg plants, by this time, that guy I told you to remember, W.S. George, who helped found Canonsburg Pottery, had broken off and started his own pottery. They were the only 2 potteries in the state of Pennsylvania. Then, in 1944, with indoor plumbing, there was little demand for chamber pots, and both mills began to emphasize dinnerware. In the early 1950s, Canonsburg Pottery employed 350 workers in the production of dinnerware, and the majority of those employees were women who were cheaper labor than their male counterparts. As a result of protests by the American Dinnerware Potteries Union in 1972, a major victory over the trend of cheap imported pottery had the U.S. government increase tariffs placed on imported ware. But ultimately, the government stifled that victory by increasing regulations on domestic manufacturers and industries regarding pollution, safety, and health. And like its neighbors in the steel industry, the cost of doing business became too high to continue. By the end of 1976, there were only 100 employees. And within months, Canonsburg Pottery was in receivership. In mid-January 1977, production of dinnerware stopped. So why is Canonsburg the most radioactive town in America? The Standard Chemical Company operated a radium refining mill from 1911 to 1922 in the town of Canonsburg. From 1930 to 1942, the company purified uranium ore. Both of these chemicals, radium and uranium, are used to make nuclear bombs. The Canonsburg plant produced more radium in a year than all the rest of the radium plants in the world combined. Marie Curie, the French physicist and chemist, was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize and had discovered and was experimenting with radium, but only had 1 gram in her Paris laboratory. Curie was invited to the United States in 1921. And was given an honorary degree from the University of Pittsburgh, plus 1 gram of radium for her research. Guess where that radium was made? During her trip, she also visited Canonsburg and the mill that produced the radium for her. From 1942 to 1957, when Roosevelt approved the development of an atomic bomb, Vitro Chemical Company acquired Standard Chemical and was secretly making uranium for the Manhattan Project, culminating in the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. Vitro Manufacturing Company refined uranium and other rare metals. Here's where the rumor that Canonsburg Pottery was made of radioactive clay comes in. Waste from incomplete extraction and other metallurgical processes accumulated during the site's long history, where left uncovered was threatening many residents downwind of it. About 11,600 tons of the mill's tailings were moved to another property between 1956 and 1957. After the closure of Vitro, the site was used by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, and then the site was used by Canonsburg Pottery Company, operated by the George family, for land and clay. The Canonsburg mill site was designated in the 1978 Uranium Mill Tailings Radiation Control Act, boy that's a mouthful, as eligible for federal funds for cleanup. It was the only uranium mill east of the Mississippi River to receive funds. In a $48 million cleanup project, the mill site and 163 nearby properties in Canonsburg were remediated. Residual radioactivity was consolidated into a covered clay-lined cell at the Canonsburg mill site, which is fenced and posted with a warning for radioactivity. So it's safe to say that the radioactive clay tale is more likely true than not. They even say that Canonsburg pottery can still be detected on Geiger counters. I'm half tempted to purchase one to see if I can pick up any radioactivity in my pieces. So Victoria, how did you do it? How did you find a matching piece after all these years? Well, when I was researching for this video, I hit up Google, where I was able to find some similar patterns in the Arizona line. As you can see here, they resemble the watercolor brushstrokes of my pattern, which would make sense because they're from the same Arizona line and more than likely were manufactured during the same time. Another site that I recommend is replacements.com. Generally, they're used for things like Uncle Bob comes over and accidentally breaks a piece of your great-grandmother's fine china. This is a great site to find replacements. They are pricier than eBay, but offer services like free pattern identification and even restoration. One of the things that I like about this site is that it's formatted like a catalog, showcasing China companies and the patterns known under those companies. So replacements.com had the frolic pattern. I'll show it to you again. And one thing that I found interesting is it actually dated the pattern pattern, which I had not found before. According to replacements.com, this pattern was manufactured between 1956 and 1958. Another way that I search for this video is I have a special technique that I use for search engines like Google that really is my go-to when researching a subject. It's a great baseline to start your search. I find that the way that I search yields more comprehensive search results and has helped me reach deeper levels of information I might have otherwise missed. And it's a simple adjustment. All I do is change the words I'm searching for, transpose them, or leave words out that you might ordinarily think are important to leave in the search. But it actually changes the search results. Like, I might begin my search with Canonsburg Pottery, Arizona Frolic, because that's the manufacturer, the line, and the pattern. But then I might go and just search Arizona and Frolic to yield different search results. And it works. Lo and behold, I found 2 pieces using this technique that didn't come up in my initial search results. One of them was on Pinterest, seen here, with the same single lip side, but in an elongated rectangle shape. Then the next was a 3-tiered serving platter on eBay. My heart stopped. I went to the listing and it had ended long ago for a mere $9.99 on auction. I was kicking myself, but then I realized it didn't sell. The auction had just ended. So heart racing again, I reached out to the seller. I didn't have to wait long. They responded the same day to let me know that they still had it and they would be willing to list it on eBay as buy it now for $14.99 plus shipping. Sold! I was elated. And here she is, my 3-tiered platter in the same pattern. She's so beautiful. Here is the markings on the bottom. Oh, you guys, I don't even know what to say. When she came in the mail, it had to have been easily one of the most exciting days of 2021 so far. And she is even more beautiful than I expected. So the moral of the story here is don't stop looking. These special rare pieces are out there waiting to be discovered. I hope that you all enjoyed this video and it was very informative. It gave you some tips on how to research for those super rare collectibles you're looking for, or even in your own journey as a dealer or reseller. It's so fun to know that I have these pieces that I not only love, but have a very interesting history behind them. If you haven't already, don't forget to do all those YouTubey things. Like this video on your way out, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell notification, save this video for when you're doing your own research, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, y'all.